Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to another Beekeeping Basics. Today we've come out to one of our apiaries to take a look at a nucleus colony that we're going to be supplying to somebody, and I wanted to just check that everything was okay, that the bees are fine and healthy and they're ready to go. And I thought that this was an ideal opportunity really to have a quick discussion about what a nucleus colony should consist of. If you're new to beekeeping or you're about to buy a nucleus colony, you'll be spending a lot of money on some bees that you hope are going to be fit and healthy and ready to go for this summer's season. And I wanted to just cover off some of the things to look out for and what the kind of bees are that we're supplying, so that you get an idea as to what you should see when you open up your nucleus colony for the first time. So a nucleus colony can consist of any number of frames from maybe 4 to 6 or 7, and a nucleus colony is basically a small colony of honeybees. So for the beginner beekeeper, for the novice, it's an ideal colony size to have to get started. You don't really want to be buying a full-size hive if you've never experienced bees before, with thousands of bees that you're going to have to manage. With a nucleus colony, you still get the queen, you still get a lot of workers, you still get a range of brood, and you might at this time of the year start to see 1 or 2 drones. But what you don't get is the sudden flush of bees in a full 11 frame, 10 frame hive, or even a 12 frame colony, where it might be quite daunting for you. So it's a useful starter to get you going into beekeeping. The costs of nucleus colonies vary, but the prices have been going up over the last few years and now can exceed in excess of £200 in some instances. So you want to make sure that you're buying from a reputable source. Ideally, it would be great if you could go and see the bees beforehand, but I know that that's not always possible and not always something that you can manage. So get to know the beekeeper that's supplying them, get to understand his beekeeping, and make sure that he's a beekeeper that you can trust is going to supply you with a good quality nucleus colony. If you go online, there's lots of people selling nucleus colonies at the moment, and there's also a lot of advice out there. Particularly if you go to the National Bee Unit website, which is named BeeBase, there's a section in there that you can go to which has information leaflets, and there's a great leaflet there that discusses what a nucleus colony should consist of. So that's well worth taking a look at, and I'll put some links down in the description below for you. So what can you expect in a nucleus colony? Let's say that you're buying a 5 frame or a 6 frame nucleus colony. Ideally, you'll have a queen that will have been marked by the beekeeper that's selling you the bees, but that's not always the case. And also ask if the beekeeper clips the wing of the queen. That's something that I personally don't do, but I know that there are some beekeepers out there that do that. And that might be something that you do or don't want to have with your queen. So it's an important part of a discussion to have with the selling beekeeper. So within the nucleus colony, you can expect and should expect to see maybe 3 frames of brood, and that brood will consist of both open brood and sealed brood, and some of the brood might start to emerge, so you might have some gaps within that particular frame where the brood has emerged, but then the queen will immediately go onto that frame and start to lay again. So that's a good sign to look out for. Ideally, you want at least 1 frame of capped stores so that the bees have got something that they can feed on. But if you're transferring them fairly quickly into a full-size hive, you ought to be feeding them straight away as well. So as long as they've got at least 1 to 2 frames of stores, then once you get them into your hive, you can feed them up and the bees should really get away really well. Finally, the nucleus box should have plenty of bees in it. You don't want to take the top off and find that the combs are barely covered in bees. So always make sure that you've got lots of bees and that you've got brood and that you've got stores in your nucleus colony. If you have any doubts, then contact the beekeeper that sold them to you and ask them to come round and to take a look at them with you. It's really important that as beginner beekeepers you don't feel intimidated by more experienced beekeepers that are selling you a low rate nucleus colony. There's nothing worse. So let's go and take a look at the nuke that I've prepared for one of our customers, and we'll see how this measures up. So this is the nuke that we've got ready for our customer, and it's a bit cold, so this is going to be a very rapid look inside, but hopefully we can just demonstrate to you what you should find inside a nucleus colony that you're buying. So this is a 6-frame nucleus colony. So this one has stores in it, but those are uncapped stores. So we'd like to see at least one more frame that has a lot of stores, and this one also has lots of stores in it. So here we've got a frame of sealed brood on both sides, and also lots of open brood around the side here. And we've got plenty of bees in here as well. So this frame has got one side that's fully capped brood, and the other side is loaded with eggs and some capped brood as well. The other thing to say is that the frames should ideally be no more than a year old. You don't want to get really old wax in the frames, something that you would then have to change yourself. And again, here we've got another frame of capped brood, lots of brood and lots of bees as well. The box is full of bees at the bottom. And then finally this frame is full of stores, and we've got sealed stores here as well. So the bees have plenty of food. We've got 3 full frames of brood and lots of bees. I didn't see the queen, but I'm not going to spend too much time because it is quite cold. So we're just going to close them up. Normally with a 6-frame nucleus colony I would expect 4 frames of brood, but what we've actually got here, we're selling a 5-frame nucleus colony to our customer, but this particular box is slightly larger, so I've actually included a 6th frame of food for them. So we'll just give them a quick smoke, and then we can get the top back on, and then they can settle down, and then we'll be ready to take them over to our customer in the next day or two. So I'm really happy with that. We've got a nice nucleus colony there. It should have been a 5-frame nuke, but we've put an extra frame in because the box is slightly bigger than normal. But I'm sure our customer won't complain about having 6 frames instead of 5. The last thing that you want is to be either buying or selling a nucleus colony that is going to cause your customer some complaints, or is going to cause you, the customer, to be worried about the quality of the nucleus colony. So always communicate with either the seller of the bees, or if you're selling bees, then obviously your customer, and just make sure that everybody's happy and everybody knows what they're going to get. And finally, we need to just talk about disease. The nucleus colony should be free from disease as far as both you and the seller are aware. Now that means that it shouldn't have chalk brood, it shouldn't have sac brood, it certainly shouldn't have any of the foul brood diseases, and it's important that you retain some kind of confirmation from the person that's selling the nuke to you about their details. So name, address, telephone number, the date of the sale, and the location that the bees were at prior to the sale. Once you've got the bees home, put them on the stand where they're going to have their permanent home, and give them at least 24 hours to settle down in their new position before you then transfer them into a new full-size hive. And don't forget to then start feeding them. At this time of the year, a frame feeder is probably the best option because you can keep the sugar syrup close to the bees and they don't have to go too far because it's still quite chilly. I hope you found that interesting, and I hope that if you are about to buy some honeybees, then you get a really healthy, strong nucleus colony, and that gives you a good head start into the coming season. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. We've got lots more videos planned for the coming season. Don't forget, we've got our Facebook group, which is Stuart's Beekeeping Basics, and there's lots of other beekeepers there that are helping out with lots of tips and techniques and help and advice to beginner beekeepers. And finally, thanks to everybody that supported us on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. It's where you can help us produce more of these videos, and if you'd like to go and take a look at that, that would be great too. We're going to head off and produce some more videos now, and we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.